Hello, fellow AI art enthusiasts. My name is Thane, and I want to take you on an exploratory journey to Midjourney's version 6.1 capabilities. This time, I didn't just want to try out random words, but rather investigate an intriguing concept. You probably didn't know this about me, but my native language is Estonian. And we have an interesting phenomenon that appears in our everyday language. For some strange reason, we often combine two opposing statements together and it somehow emphasizes what we are attempting to describe. For example, something in translation akin to scarily beautiful means that something is just so beautiful that it is beyond beautiful. That is one of the reasons I wanted to explore opposing words in Midjourney, to see how Midjourney depicts these opposing things. And also, I wanted to check out what the default style and raw style of version 6.1 look like. Before we get to the experiment itself, I want to take the opportunity to thank my patrons. They are currently helping me explore concepts that really interest me instead of clickbait videos without any actual substance. So, if you want to join these amazing people, the link to my Patreon is in the description of this video. I also post all the prompts and their corresponding images as PDF files as perks to my members as well as ad-free videos. Maybe someday, I will also achieve the situation where I am able to post videos on Patreon a few days earlier as well, but lately, I have been posting all the videos to both platforms as soon as they are complete. So, what I have done in this video is, I have prompted each combination of hopefully opposing words on their own. I selected the landscape aspect ratio for this, and seed number 777 again, for all of the prompts. The seed number question is the most frequent question I get, so I hope you don't mind if I go over it again and repeat myself with this. The seed number is the parameter that gives your images its randomness. There are over 4 billion seed numbers and each image grid you generate has a seed number. If you don't specify it like I have, you will be assigned a totally random number each time. That is why if you run the exact same prompt over and over, you will get a different result. It's because the seed number is different each time. You can dig it up, but it's a lot of work to do for hundreds of images, so that's why I have decided to stick with a single number for all of the prompts. The benefits are that I don't have to look it up to let you know what the number is. You can reproduce the exact same image if there hasn't been any big changes to break the seeds. The speed kind of factors in here as well, so you have to be on fast mode. And when I compare things, I know that I have removed one layer of randomization from the equation. Meaning that if I make a small change to the prompt, I know the changes come from changing the words, and not that there is a different random seed number. It really helps me spot some of the subtle things. After just the word combination itself, I have prompted them again, but I have added one more word to the prompt. These images are in the 9:16 aspect ratio. This time I wanted to select different mediums exclusively. So the additional words I chose are drawing, photo, acrylic and architecture. And then I did the same thing again, but with the raw style by adding --raw to all the 5 prompts. I haven't explored the raw style in a while, so I decided to include that as well to get a better look at the capabilities. But enough of the introduction. Let's do some exploring. This time with commentary. Ancient futurism. Starting off in alphabetical order. I guess this is kind of indistinguishable from just sci-fi and alien planet imagery. Maybe slightly more ruins. The style on its own looks to be kind of painterly and similar to concept art. It's not photographic or photorealistic, but we shall see how other word combinations impact this. It would seem that even the word photo doesn't really make this combination more photography-like. Acrylic seems to be going more abstract. It still looks more kind of sci-fi overall rather than what I thought it would look like. Raw style is actually kind of similar. At least the color schemes and what the images depict. There are some differences, but not a lot. I guess this is such a topic where all the possible source material for inspiration does not look like photography. Bitter sweetness. Now moving on to flavor. I think the bitterness is kind of lost, and we are mostly left with candy, cakes, berries and fruit. Sweet themes seem to continue when adding the medium words. I really like the drawings. And architecture is kind of very lost with this prompt. Raw style is entirely candy. Maybe sour candy, but I guess bitterness is difficult to put in visual. Photo prompt actually looks like photography of candy. Architecture is still struggling to depict this concept. Blurry clarity. At first glance, this concept seems to be more blurry and not have any clarity, but if you look closely, some of the images indeed embody some clarity as well. The sentiment is very well matched with all the remaining prompts. All the images depict something blurry, yet slightly clear. Raw style is photographic as well and seems to favor images taken from a window on a rainy day when you accidentally zoom on the water droplets on the window. The additional word brings in some variety, but I feel like the concept is kind of lost in most of the images. Bold timidness. Really opposing words that seem to confuse Midjourney. At least I feel like we get just something totally random with this combination of words. Maybe the photo images are the best representation of the concept. I feel like in some images you get a timid person, but something in the image becomes really bold, for example the makeup. While default style was painterly, raw style has become more photographic. These are quite nice actually. Not sure about the rest of the prompts though. Acrylic is just totally abstract. I didn't know it would turn out like that when I chose the words. I expected a painted style with strong colors. Bright darkness. Now on to a series of lighting-related combinations. I think they are more successful to depict, because they describe visual things, even though opposing. So that is how we end up with images that are dark, but with a really bright source of light. I actually like the acrylic images this time. Same topic continues with raw style, just slightly more photographic and cinematic and less painted. Acrylic has again become very randomly abstract, and the rest of the images don't have as much color as default style did. Bright gloom. There is starting to be a pattern here with the default style. I do like that it has less detail in comparison to some older models of Midjourney. The visuals are interesting, but nothing too impressive I think. Fittingly, there is kind of a somber feel to them all. And right on point, raw style is similar to photography. I guess gloom means to Midjourney lots of fog, and wetness and wintry conditions without snow. I like some of the drawings. They seem slightly creepy, but the weird cat-like creature sketch looks awesome. Bright night. On to something more colorful and warm. These look great. And yet again, in a more painted style which I guess is the default look of this new version. The rest look lovely as well. I really like the drawing and acrylic images. And night obviously has the moon illuminating and making the night as bright as it can be. I like how there is just additional light sources from multiple places. The stars are so bright, and there is also the glow of the sun slowly appearing in some of the images. I like the rest of these too. And it's interesting how the architecture has less of the natural sources of light and more lights on in skyscrapers. Bright shadows. I don't know if simply shadows would have done the same, but the contrast is really there between the very dark shadows and very bright light. Interesting how we get more windows and man-made environments with this prompt and its variations. The raw style doesn't seem as bright as the default style did. The shadows are a lot darker though. I guess we see slightly more nature, but I do feel like mostly these images have man-made environments here. The acrylic differs a bit and goes to the park. Burning cold. And this concept gives us fires burning in snowy environments. While effective looking, these images look kind of creepy. Mostly, just fire. Perhaps fire in winter jackets, but the cold part is kind of not there. Raw style is pretty similar, again, just more photographic. And slightly less creepy as well. Although architecture does produce houses burning in wintry conditions. You can have fires in the winter, so I guess it's not an impossible concept to picture. Calm fury. I think the calm was lost a little bit with these. The dragon serpent creature looks awesome though. And the rest of the prompts look more fury than calm. With the exception of architecture where such a concept is more difficult. More furious stormy seas. Nothing calm though, except the cat. Goku is kind of an unexpected appearance in the drawing grid. Calm storm. Interestingly, the storm feels way more calmer than the fury did. I guess you can depict the storm part with very sinister clouds too. There are a few images here where that is the case. But mostly, we do get pretty stormy bodies of water. Raw style actually depicts this better. The water is pretty calm, but you can see from the clouds that there is a storm brewing. Maybe it is so very reminiscent of the phrase, calm before the storm. Rest of the images are mixed, some are just full-on storms, some visualize the storm by clouds only. Celestial abyss. This concept contrasts the divine and ethereal qualities of the heavens with the dark, chaotic, and unfathomable depths of a void, creating a paradoxical image of a beautiful yet terrifying space. We do get space and celestial bodies in most of these images. Architecture is kind of reminiscent of the ancient futurism concept. As this concept probably has little photographic source material, even the raw style is painterly. I actually do like the architecture images. The rest of the images look nice too, but not sure about how successful this combination has been compared to my expectations. Chaotic order. The idea of a structured system that nonetheless contains or arises from elements of chaos, creating a paradoxical balance between disorder and organization. We do seem to get a lot of chaos in most of the prompts, not sure if I can see the order part anywhere. Again, a pretty unimaginable concept, so raw style veers away from photography. I do see many fractals in these. The photo images seem to kind of be a joke about how this concept sounds like a band. I guess Midjourney has a sense of humor. Clear confusion. A state where clarity is somehow entangled with confusion, making something simultaneously understandable yet perplexing. Oh dear, Midjourney is struggling here. Photos especially seem to show a variety of literally clear things. But the raw images are much better. I really like the traffic images. The instructions are clear, but confusing. Spot on in my opinion. But adding more words goes back to similar things that default style did. Clear fog. A scenario where something is both transparent and obscured, creating a paradox where visibility and mist coexist. But we mostly get images of just fog. Well, okay. There are some things clearing up from just being fogged up. Raw style, really similar. The fog is clearing, and I just realized how similar it is to the phrase, fog is clearing. Makes sense now. Interestingly, we see many spruces in the forest images. Don't places with other types of trees have fog? Cold warmth. The coexistence of coldness and warmth, where two opposing sensations are felt simultaneously, blending into a unique experience. So obviously we mostly get people dressed in hats and large scarves. And warm light emanating from houses. Who would put a scarf in a mug? Otherwise, a pretty spot-on job. Depictions of things that bring warmth to cold. Default style results made more sense to me. Crystal fog. A juxtaposition of sharp, clear clarity with a misty, obscuring haze, merging the distinct with the indistinct. But Midjourney does tend to be very literal, so we do occasionally see some crystals in the fog. Snow is actually made of crystallized water, so it makes sense that we get pictures of foggy wintry forests. Rest of the images have less crystals, more just fog and obviously winter and snow mixed in. Makes sense. Dark brightness. A brightness that exists within or emerges from darkness, where light and shadow interact in a complex and paradoxical way. We had the opposite of this not so long ago. But the order of words does matter slightly. I feel like these are more darker. And raw style gives us mostly wall-mounted lamps. I wonder why it is so that dark brightness is more dark than bright darkness. But they do have very similar results. Dark brilliance. A brilliance that shines through or is accentuated by darkness, creating a striking contrast between light and shadow. But Midjourney interprets it differently. Brilliance must mean something else, other than the contrast between light and shadow. And it seems to be something totally different from the raw style perspective as well. There is less photographic imagery. There are some interesting things here mixed in with the light and shadow contrast. Dark glow. A subtle, subdued luminescence that emanates within, or through darkness, creating a mysterious and soft illumination. Seems to look indeed like described. There are some strange ones here though. Glow seems to become something slightly eerie and sinister. And although those drawings don't really look like drawings, I really like the upper images of the drawing grid, the glowy hooded figures. Dark light. Light that is dimmed, shadowed, or otherwise altered by darkness, making it both luminous and obscure at the same time. But I think the light seems quite bright actually, it's the environments that are dark. There is nothing dim about rays of bright light shining into a dark room or through the treetops. The hand with 6 fingers kind of bothers me. I guess we have still not yet gotten past the time when AI generates hands wrong. Dark radiance. A glowing energy or brightness that is intertwined with or emerges from darkness, blending luminosity with shadow. I think the drawing and photo images look absolutely lovely. They are similar to dark brilliance though, but I do like these more. I don't know how these have embodied kind of a video game feel, but I like those hooded characters. They do seem to continue in the drawing and photo prompts as well. I wonder what the connection is, and why it doesn't show up with the default style. Deep surface. A surface that suggests, or hints at hidden depths beneath it, creating a sense of complexity just beneath the obvious. But Midjourney pretty much attempts to show us deep water and the surface of the water at the same time. The same thing seems to be also happening with raw style. Underwater in the bottom of the deep, and the surface is also visible with rays of light illuminating the scene. And rest of the prompts with additional words also depict watery elements for the most part. Distant closeness. A paradoxical feeling where emotional or physical closeness is felt despite a significant distance, blending intimacy with separation. But it is really difficult to visualize this in a way that it would feel both close and distant. Raw style does this slightly better. In almost all of the images you see a close couple, but they are in the distance. The same thematic is repeated only in the photo prompt. Electric vines. Organic vine-like growths that pulse with a sharp, energetic charge, blending the natural with the mechanical or energetic. I really like the images this word combination produces. Architecture looks like it's not that electric though. Raw style is attempting to find real-life counterparts from chain lights. But drawing and acrylic prompts still look great. Lovely and colorful. Ethereal machinery. Machinery that possesses a delicate, otherworldly quality, blending the mechanical with the transcendent, or spiritual. I love it when the results look so intricate and detailed. The drawings and acrylics especially. Raw style is not very real looking, but I do love these results, so mysterious. The drawings look almost like schematics. I also like how the intricateness has been weaved into the architecture images. Feathered stone. A contrast between the softness of feathers and the hardness of stone, merging two opposing textures into one form. I think it may hold similarities to carving feathers out of stone. The contrast is notable, but maybe nothing too special. Raw style seems to be going the route of mostly just having feathers placed on rocks. With the exception of architecture, Midjourney tends to see this just as a feather and a stone. Fierce gentleness. The presence of a powerful intensity within an act of gentleness, where strength and tenderness coexist. Everything except architecture seems to produce felines and girls hugging them. The feline theme continues with raw style as well. It's interesting to think how Midjourney interprets fierceness as cats, and adding more words continues with cats. Only architecture is kind of lost, and doesn't really portray this combination in any recognizable way. Floating roots. Roots that are paradoxically suspended in the air, merging the groundedness of roots with the lightness of floating. Really surreal stuff. However, photo has kind of interpreted this as trees floating in water, which is not that unheard of, just rare. Raw style also strays from surrealism and gives us images of roots floating on water. The architecture looks very interesting here. And acrylics also look different from what we have seen so far. Fluid sculpture. A sculpture that seems to possess or convey a sense of fluidity, blurring the line between solid and liquid forms. Quite abstract results, but everything looks pretty spot on, at least how I would have imagined this combination to look like. Nothing too different about raw style either. The outputs look very similar when comparing default style and raw style images. Frozen desert. A desert that, despite its typical association with heat, is frozen, combining the extremes of temperature and environment. Quite nice images. It's as if snow has descended onto a desert. Probably again nothing unheard of, just something very rare. Snow and ice-covered landscapes can sometimes be reminiscent to some sort of deserts. Raw style brings us more Arctic environments. I really like the shapes of the architecture images. Frozen fire. A paradox where fire, symbolizing heat and energy, is somehow frozen, merging two incompatible states. This seems to create some interesting visuals where at least the photo images have ice-covered fire, or ice that is on fire. And raw style looks pretty realistic, even though the situation is kind of impossible. The drawings look very nice to me, they have way more color than they usually do. Fuzzy clarity. A situation where something is both clear and indistinct, blending sharpness with blurriness. I think we had something similar earlier, but with blurry. This is slightly different, it's not that blurry actually. The glasses idea for raw style is pretty neat. The only clarity is through the glasses, very interesting look. I feel like Midjourney may be mixing fuzzy with furry here. I don't know what else would explain the cats. Gentle ferocity. The presence of a soft, tender demeanor that simultaneously carries an underlying intensity or fierceness. A reverse of one concept we had quite recently with all the felines. But ferocity seems to invoke a richer variety of animals. Although raw style still seems to prefer cats of all sizes. But we do get one wolf in the acrylic section next to all the abstractness. Gentle force. A force that is applied with a soft, subtle touch, combining power with delicacy. I feel like Midjourney tries to achieve this with natural elements, water, wind, light. And a tiny waterfall or gentle waves may be just the best visualization of this concept. And I guess Midjourney also thinks it's a perfect name for a band, if you look at the photo grid. Gentle hurricane. A paradox where a typically violent and chaotic force like a hurricane is portrayed with gentleness, blending extremes of nature. We do see a lot of vortexes and palm trees being swept by the wind. And raw style brings us to photos from space. I don't know what is so gentle about those hurricanes. Although clouds do look soft. I don't think Midjourney really has depicted the gentle part of the prompt. Maybe we would see way more destruction without it. Gentle storm. A storm that carries with it an unexpected gentleness, merging the power of nature with a soft, soothing presence. Very similar concept, what we just saw, but I still don't think there is anything gentle in those rough waves. Raw style looks like a full-on storm to me. Lots of clouds and waves. I guess it's a very difficult concept to make into an image. Glowing ruins. Ruins that emit a soft, luminous glow, blending decay with an ethereal light that brings a sense of life to what is broken. These look nice. They look like concept art to fantasy-related media. Raw style looks kind of like concept art as well. I don't know, but for some reason, I would have expected something more out of these. They all kind of look the same to me. Happy sadness. A complex emotional state where joy and sadness coexist, creating a bittersweet experience that blends two opposing feelings. This mostly seems to do some very eerie and creepy-looking smiley faces. Not architecture though. Raw style also has smileys in somber environments. Photographic and anime style. The happiness is still shown as smiley faces or happy colors in the case of acrylic, but the rest is pretty depressing. Harmonious discord. A situation where conflicting or dissonant elements come together to create an unexpected harmony, merging chaos with order. In some cases, I like when there is a lot of detail to images. There are a couple of images I like here. Raw style has taken a turn towards fantasy anime animals. It seems to continue when you add in other words. At least drawings and photo images look really awesome. Heavy breeze. A breeze that feels unusually weighty, combining the lightness of air with a sense of heaviness. So basically very windy, almost storm-like. I do like the drawings and photo images though, very cool wind effect. Raw style images look basically like stormy seas. I wonder what is it about sailboats with raw style. Aren't sails usually taken down in weather like this to prevent sails from breaking? Heavy feathers. Feathers that, despite their typical lightness, carry an unexpected heaviness, blending delicacy with weight. Not sure what makes them look heavy, but the photos look very nice. Kind of like feather fashion. These look like normal feathers, just black and white close-up photography. The architecture has some interesting shapes though. And one model with a very feathery hat for some reason. Heavy light. Light that seems to carry a physical weight, merging the intangible quality of light with a sense of density. I don't see how this translates. Maybe the rays of lights are so intense, they look like they have actual mass. Raw style does rays of light as well, not getting the heaviness from these. Now I got it, this has a double meaning, something that should be heavy and almost weightless at the same time, but light is easier to visualize. Heavy lightness. A state where lightness is tinged with or carries an unexpected heaviness, blending two contradictory sensations. A very similar wording to our previous one, but notice how the images are drastically different, despite being only 4 letters apart. We do see some light, but also big things made of light materials and possibly strong winds that almost lift a person up. Acrylic goes really abstract. I don't know how photos ended up with trees and pollen, but again, totally different to the previous concept. Hot coldness. The coexistence of heat and cold within the same experience, creating a paradox where opposing temperatures merge. Yet another one I feel like we have already explored, but in reverse. The outputs are similar though. Environment is cold and clothing and cups of warm drink make it hotter. I keep wondering why the acrylic images are always so abstract. Joyful sorrow. A complex emotional state where joy and sorrow intertwine, creating a bittersweet feeling that is both uplifting and melancholic. Well, I feel like the joyfulness doesn't really come across from these images, they are very sad. I do see a hint of a smile on one of these faces, but raw style weighs heavily towards sorrow as well. I guess it's a very complex contradiction. We either see joy, or we see sorrow, nothing that would be ideally combined. Liquid fireflies. Fireflies that seem to have a fluid, liquid quality, blending the organic nature of insects with a flowing, almost water-like movement. But we mostly get just fireflies or bouquet blur. Doesn't look very liquid. Raw style adds some water, so that's a liquid. There is some interesting concepts here. The kind of liquid glass architecture, for example, looks very cool. Liquid stone. Stone that appears or behaves like a liquid, merging the solidity of rock with the fluidity of water. But it's a really difficult thing to put into a picture. Mostly we see stones dropping to liquid or fluid shapes, and raw style also has just stones in water, which is liquid. But the stones themselves don't look that liquid. And rounded shapes don't really make the stones liquid either, they are still very solid looking. I guess this is an impossible contradiction. Loud hush. A silence that feels intense and almost loud in its quietness, blending the absence of sound with a powerful presence. Very strange outcomes. I guess Midjourney is struggling with the expression of shushing someone with your finger over your mouth. Raw style isn't much better, it's kind of hilarious actually if you think about how wrong some of these fingers are placed. The raw style sure does produce some strange images with this concept. Loud quiet. A quietness that is somehow charged with intensity or presence, making the absence of noise feel almost overwhelming. Similar, but still kind of strange. Very strange looking expressions as well. People wearing headphones is actually a perfect representation for this contradiction. Loud for the person wearing headphones, but quiet for everyone else. But adding more words makes these strange again and kind of not that spot on in my opinion. Loud silence. Silence that is so profound it feels almost deafening, blending the absence of sound with a sense of overwhelming presence. Some images are very strange, but the photo images are quite nice and high concept, and visually striking. Raw style seems to have some strong visuals as well at the first glance. But again, adding more words makes things kind of strange. Loud whispers. Whispers that carry an unexpected loudness, merging the softness of a whisper with a forceful presence. The shush fingers are kind of out of place again in many of the images. I guess you can get the shush finger if you really specifically describe the placement of the finger. Do loud whispers turn into vapor according to Midjourney? Luminous darkness. Darkness that possesses or is permeated by a subtle light, blending shadow with a soft, glowing presence. We finally got past the loud quietness onto something that we had before, but in reverse. Small differences. Raw style output looks similar to the reverse, or just very similar to what we have already seen before. These are okay, I guess, just kind of repetitive by now, but I didn't want to leave anything out. Luminous shadows. Shadows that seem to emit a soft light, merging darkness with a gentle glow. But these look pretty much like simply shadows. Raw style doesn't really add the luminousness to these shadows. And raw style is otherwise quite similar to what we have seen already. The shapes of the shadows are quite interesting if you start looking at them more closely. Magnetic flowers. Flowers that have an unusual, magnetic quality, blending the natural beauty of flora with an unexpected physical force. Flowers seem to make everything look more beautiful and feminine in Midjourney. These raw style flowers look simply more metallic than magnetic, but I guess it makes sense. Some of the metallicness gets lost. We get flowers from all kinds of materials, but they look pretty and colorful no matter what. Mechanical garden. A garden composed of or infused with mechanical elements, blending the organic with the artificial. I normally tend to prefer minimalistic things, but the lusciousness and extreme detail are appealing here. Raw style is kind of rusted. But I guess you wouldn't normally have use for mechanics in a garden, they seem to be just decorative elements left to rust. But again, lovely, extremely detailed and really interesting architecture. Metallic feathers. Feathers that possess a metallic sheen or hardness, merging the softness of feathers with the toughness of metal. The feathers probably are still light and feathery, just colored with metallic colors this time. I can confirm that I think these feathers look metallic. Gold and blue really fits well together. I like the color combination most of all. Molten icebergs. Icebergs that are somehow in a molten state, blending the extreme coldness of ice with the heat of molten material. We see some hints of lava here, but molten iceberg is basically just water. I guess raw style shows us icebergs that are in the process of melting with a nice glow from whatever is melting it. Not much to say, icebergs turning into water. Maybe not as interesting of a concept than I originally thought. Narrow vastness. A space that feels both confined and expansive, blending the feeling of narrowness with a sense of endlessness. Some images seem to be spot on for this concept, especially the photos. Acrylic is pretty abstract again. Raw style has some interesting concepts, canyons and narrow roads through vast landscapes. Photo images again best represent this contradiction. Overall, this aspect ratio seems to lose the vastness. Neon wilderness. A wild, natural environment infused with the artificial glow of neon, merging the natural world with synthetic light. Very colorful images. There doesn't look to be a big stylistic difference between the images. Raw style looks pretty unreal, more like video game graphics. Adding media words looks pretty similar to default style, some differences though. Peaceful chaos. A chaotic situation that is somehow calm or serene, blending disorder with tranquility. These images look indeed very chaotic. Not so sure about the peacefulness. This raw image in the lower left looks very nice. This is the best representation of what peaceful chaos would look like in my mind. These are chaotic, but most of the images don't really portray peacefulness to me. Peaceful turmoil. A state of inner or outer turmoil that carries an unexpected sense of peace, blending conflict with calm. But Midjourney seems to again represent this as stormy. The landscape raw images attempt to portray this concept, but we get either one side or the other, I think. These also don't really convey the conflict of this concept. Phantom architecture. Architectural structures that seem ghostly or unreal, blending physical form with an ethereal presence. Looks pretty much like architecture. Slightly phantom or surrealism with the floating. Some of these concepts look pretty interesting. There is lots of seemingly impossible floating. It somewhat continues with these two, but mostly it looks like architecture, or very abstract geometric stuff. Quick stillness. A moment of rapid movement that suddenly gives way to complete stillness, blending speed with tranquility. But I think we mostly just get the stillness and none of the quickness. I don't know why Midjourney thinks that rocks are quick. The duck might be, but not rocks. Again, not very successful in conveying the quickness part of the concept. Quiet thunder. Thunder that is surprisingly soft or muted, blending the power of a storm with an unexpected quietness. Sound is kind of impossible to put in an image, so mostly we get lightning. Some pretty impressive landscapes here, but not exactly obviously what it was supposed to be. It's interesting how drawing of quiet thunder produces characters similar to Lara Croft. Radiant gloom. A gloomy atmosphere that is nonetheless brightened by a soft, radiant light, blending darkness with luminosity. We had another gloom concept earlier, but this looks very similar to me to what we have already seen. Drawings are impressive though. Indeed very gloomy, with a glowing fog. I like the drawings, slightly demonic, and this is yet again the perfect name for a metal band it would seem. Raging peace. A state of intense, almost violent peace, blending serenity with a powerful, forceful energy. The drawings look nice. Lots of attempted aggressive peace signs, but none of them looks exactly right. Raw style goes more towards painting, but fails at peace symbols. Instead we get the Mercedes-Benz logo. Adding more words doesn't help either. The peace symbols still transform to Mercedes logos or some unrecognized logos. Rigid fluid. A fluid substance that possesses an unusual rigidity, blending the qualities of flexibility with inflexibility. The fluid part is spot on, but the rigidness comes across only with architecture. Same deal with raw style too. It's like a good capture of moving liquid, but it's not rigid. No big changes in depiction for raw style. Architecture looks different slightly, but it's the only one that looks rigid. Rigid fluidity. A state where fluidity is constrained by a rigid structure, blending movement with stiffness. Adding 4 letters to the prompt does similar things, but produces entirely different images. The fluid is no longer just a fluid, it could actually be material that once has been fluid, but cooled down to a rigid form rapidly. But adding more words just makes this concept look like it's supposed to only in the architecture grid. Rough silk. Silk that is surprisingly rough, blending the softness of the material with an unexpected texture. This silk actually looks pretty rough, and not as smooth as one would picture silk to be. Raw style also shows us cloth material that is pretty rough. It is possible that the cloth could actually be called something else, but unfortunately, I am not an expert on recognizing different textiles. Sharp clouds. Clouds that have an unusually sharp or jagged appearance, blending the softness of clouds with a cutting edge. But they look quite like regular clouds to me with contrast turned up so the edges appear kind of sharp. More clouds. I guess I am not a big fan of clouds, which is kind of ironic if you knew more about me. At least architecture adds some skyscrapers to the clouds. Sharp softness. A softness that carries an unexpected sharpness or edge, blending tenderness with a biting quality. I guess I can see the softness in all the grids except architecture. The materials and the flowers mostly feel like they could be soft. And raw style goes all in with the soft flowers with really sharp photography. Not sure what makes these architecture images so soft, clouds perhaps. Shattered serenity. A peaceful scene that has been broken or disturbed, blending calmness with a sense of fragmentation. I would have imagined something else for the serenity part, but the shattered part is spot on. Raw style is more like shattered glass or mirrors. Again, more shatteredness, not much serenity in any of these images. Shiny shadows. Shadows that possess an unusual shine, blending darkness with a reflective, light-catching quality. Again, some shadows. Not that shiny though. These eyeshadows sure do look like shiny. The lighting does add some additional actual shadows as well. But the makeup angle has disappeared in this aspect ratio and we are back to regular shadows that don't look particularly shiny to me. Silent echoes. Echoes that are muted or soft, blending the repetition of sound with an unexpected quietness. I really like the intricateness of the drawings, but otherwise, I feel like the concept has not come through in these depictions. Raw style looks slightly better, it's gloomy, kind of gives an idea of a place where nobody would go and therefore nobody would be there for any echoes. Drawings look amazing. Pictures look good too. Acrylic and architecture are again kind of disappointments for me. Silent explosion. An explosion that occurs in complete silence, blending the violence of the event with a paradoxical quiet. Well, visually it looks like an explosion and every explosion is silent if the sound wave has not reached you yet. Raw style looks like high-speed photography. And adding some more words does not really make the imagery look too much different. Silent music. Music that is somehow experienced without sound, blending melody with silence in a way that defies expectation. The silent part is difficult to depict, because music is always silent in images. Musical notes are actually silent music if you think about it. Raw style continues to do musical instruments. I guess those abandoned instruments in photo grid are basically silent, because nobody is playing them. Silent noise. Noise that is subdued or barely perceptible, blending the concept of sound with an unexpected stillness. We continue with the audio stuff. Photos are really conceptual and produce very enigmatic-looking images. Raw style has attempted all that it could, but I do not feel this has succeeded with this concept. This feels like a really impossible thing to depict. Silent scream. A scream that is expressed without sound, blending the intensity of the emotion with a complete absence of noise. Oh dear, these look intense, something out of a horror movie actually, or the version 5 tuner styles. Raw style has the scream part right, and images are silent, but I think these are mostly just screams. Raw style is actually slightly less creepy with the screams, but only a little bit. Smooth grit. A gritty texture that is nonetheless smooth to the touch, blending roughness with softness. I don't know why the drawings have a skull there. Photos are quite spot on in my opinion. Raw style too, although if you think about it, these are basically just rocks and dirt. And more rocks here as well. Smooth jaggedness. Jagged edges that are unexpectedly smooth, blending sharpness with a gentle surface. These look pretty much like the obviously default look that I am starting to get from these. Photos represent the concept the best. Raw style does this well. Actually jagged stones that are smooth at the same time. Nothing too different here. Acrylics are abstract, photo looks best, architecture is just random houses. Smooth roughness. A rough texture that is paradoxically smooth, blending two opposing tactile sensations. Similar to the previous one, but different as roughness is in essence smoother than jaggedness. But I don't know if Midjourney sees these as any different. We do see somewhat different results, but I don't think anyone could actually tell these apart. For some reason, I like the output of smooth roughness more. Especially acrylic, which just feels nicer. Soft metal. Metal that is surprisingly soft or malleable, blending the strength of the material with a gentle touch. Seems to be doing some metallic surfaces that look almost like liquid or malleable material. Raw style metal also has kind of rounded edges and just the feel that this material could be kind of softer than normal. Acrylic is strangely different. Love the drawings and architecture looks amazing. Soft sharpness. A sharp object or sensation that is surprisingly soft, blending harshness with gentleness. This is looking like very default, repetitive and maybe too difficult to depict for Midjourney. Raw style is looking actually quite nice. I think we had one already where softness was translated to plants and very sharp photography. Indeed, I think it was this same concept, just the other way around. Goes to show again that even though similar, if you switch up word order, you get a different result. Soft spikes. Spikes that have an unusual softness, blending a pointed, dangerous shape with a gentle texture. The plant spikes are perfect representation of this. They are spiky, but actually kind of soft. Interesting that raw style has something different in mind and has given us spiked shoes. But the aspect ratio change takes us back to plants even with raw style. Soft steel. Steel that is unexpectedly soft, blending the toughness of metal with a gentle, malleable quality. Even though we just had soft metal, soft steel looks entirely different and more robotic. And a perfect representation of soft steel could actually be steel wire, as it should be soft enough to bend. These are very industrial looking. Love the photography macro shots. Solid mist. Mist that has an unusual solidity, blending the ethereal quality of mist with a physical presence. We had some mist earlier in this video, and this is very similar to that. Not looking very solid though. I guess it's just an impossible concept to picture. One of the acrylic images actually gets conceptually pretty close here though. What is solid mist if not ice? Mist is just water in aerosol form, while ice is water in solid form. Solid vapor. Vapor that is surprisingly solid, merging the intangible with the tangible in a paradoxical form. The difference of mist and vapor for Midjourney seems to be color. And mist tends to appear in more natural environments, while vapor is kind of inside. Doesn't look very solid though. Default style and raw style images don't really look too different. Nothing solid here in my opinion. Spicy blandness. A bland taste that carries an unexpected spiciness, blending two contrasting flavors, but it's something very hard to picture. Nice and vibrant images, but chili peppers just give me the spicy vibe. Even raw style doesn't come up with anything clever to get the bland appearing. Just chili. Aspect ratio change doesn't change anything either, still very vibrant colors and nothing bland about these images. Still motion. Movement that appears frozen in time, blending the concept of motion with complete stillness. Some of the images actually do come out okay, like they are stills taken when the subject has been in motion. Raw style usually does some clever stuff, but this time it's kind of boring to me. I do kind of like the photos. And architecture is probably very difficult medium to have this particular concept be realized. Temporal stillness. A moment of time that feels frozen, blending the passage of time with a sense of immobility. I do kind of like some of these. At least acrylic is doing something other than very abstract color blobs. Not sure how raw style is interpreting the temporal part. This is just stillness. Default style had some clocks which I feel would have been kind of on the nose interpretations of the temporal. Tiny giants. Beings or objects that are both diminutive and grand in scale, blending smallness with an imposing presence. I love the drawings, photos are cool too with the miniature look. And even acrylic has very nice things there. Very cute images. I would have expected more of the miniature look for raw style though. Drawings look very nice again. And photo grid seems to be channeling indie band. Tranquil turbulence. A state of calmness that exists within or alongside chaotic turbulence, blending serenity with disorder. Some vortexes, but I feel like I have seen many of these images before in some variation. Tranquil part seems to be lost, and we seem to get just the turbulence. And aspect ratio change also just portrays more turbulence. But it's again a difficult opposing concept. Transparent mountains. Mountains that are surprisingly see-through, blending the solidity of a mountain with the clarity of glass. But I don't think Midjourney has got the memo about this. Just regular mountains with the exception of architecture grid. Raw style is attempting some transparency with the blurry distance. But mostly, I don't think Midjourney has been too successful with this opposing concept. Velvet thunderstorm. A thunderstorm that carries an unexpected softness, blending the power of the storm with a gentle, velvety texture. Well, the velvet mostly just translates into color. I don't see any hint of softness. Same thing with raw style, just purple color scheme for a normal thunderstorm. No softness here, but I guess the color is easier to depict and Midjourney obviously chooses this meaning of velvet to translate. Vivid dullness. A scene that is both brightly colored and strangely dull, blending intensity with a lack of vibrancy. Again, not getting the dullness here. Just vividness. Maybe raw style is attempting to put mundane scenes through a very vivid color scheme. I don't get any dullness from these, even the apartment buildings look so epically colorful. Even the drawings are so colorful. Volcanic snowflakes. Snowflakes that are surprisingly hot, blending the cool delicacy of snow with the fiery intensity of a volcano. Nice and intricate snowflakes. Colorful images, but photo and acrylic looks quite similar to each other. Raw style is attempting some cleverness like snowflakes with a volcano in the background, or snowflakes falling on volcanic soil. The other images are not so different from default style. With the exception of architecture which has graced us with some very interesting shapes. Warm ice. Ice that is paradoxically warm to the touch, blending two opposing temperature sensations. In a nutshell, icicles. Photos do some nice lighting too for them. Raw style looks pretty much the same as the photos did, except there's just more melting icy blobs. Architecture looks pretty nice with the buildings made of ice. Whispering volcano. A volcano that emits a soft, whispering sound instead of the expected roar, blending the power of nature with a gentle murmur. But we seem to get just volcanoes with flowing lava. I guess this is like whispering for volcanoes. These images look pretty nice, but I am not really impressed with the interpretation of this concept. Wild order. A state where chaos and wildness coexist within a structured system, blending disorder with an underlying sense of organization. Some animals, and really cool-looking visuals actually. I feel like we are ending on a good one. Raw style is kind of more ordinary, just wild animals. I like default style more. Photo again goes with band photos. The drawings are very impressive, but not that different from what we have already seen. Alright, those were the concepts I wanted to explore in this video. There were occasional surprises for me. Especially I noticed that the raw style had some really clever interpretations in the landscape grids, without additional words. They were very literal, but somehow actually perfect representations of these opposing words. But a lot of them became quite repetitive after a while. I didn't prompt these in alphabetical order, but when I ordered them, it may have ended up being not so exciting for me. That may have come across from some of my commentary as well, so sorry about that. I did want to do the commentary as kind of unfiltered reaction to whatever I noticed when I looked at the images. But in spite of that, sometimes it is also interesting to see just the tiniest changes to a prompt and realize how different the results come out as. That is why I wanted to leave in both word orders and the smaller changes. We did also have one less layer of randomness in the images of this video, so these changes appeared purely from the wording of the prompt and the combination, and also the order of the words. I do hope you got some interesting insights, and you now should also have a better understanding of what Midjourney version 6.1 does when you ask too much from it. That is why some of the concepts that were supposed to look different from each other do have some similarities in their output. Personally, I think I may have overdone myself again with the scope of this video, but as I intended this to be just one-part video, I wanted to do a really thorough exploration into version 6.1. And somehow halfway through I noticed how long this was becoming, but I pressed on regardless. So thank you so much for watching. You are a total champion if you made it this far into the video. Also, please like, subscribe, and come check out my Patreon. Let's continue prompting.